afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Wow, try that again.
I said it.
I know you did. You didn't think about it. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right, thank you. It is a pleasure to be here for actually a second time. This is almost an entirely new group. Not completely, but almost entirely new group as I'm looking around. We had a lot of fun at Valley Road back in the fall. Now we're here in the winter. Weather has definitely changed. So I think you know me. I'm Josh Powers. I'm the new provost. And one of the things that I've enjoyed much of what I've been doing since I got here in July, but one of the things I particularly have enjoyed is getting to know the faculty and coming to department meetings and just being able to really understand sort of what's under the hood through one's disciplinary lens and sort of the topical issues and those sorts of things. But this has also been very high on my list, as I wanted to engage with people who have a deep love of teaching. This is deep in my DNA. I'm from a college of education. I'm sure you're shocked that I think about education a lot. I have in my graduate studies, I've integrated Boyer models and thinking about the scholarship of teaching and those sorts of things in very active ways. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And one of the ways that I thought made this content, so to do something like this where you could get to know me perhaps in a little different way than maybe you might sort of normally think about as a provost. Obviously you know that I care about the teaching mission. I'm here to support it and all those sorts of things. But maybe a little different way of sort of getting to know me through the sort of pedagogy of teaching. And one of my long favorite sort of tools for doing this is Chickering and Gamson's seminal work, the 7 principles of effective teaching at the undergraduate level, basically. When I first visioned this, I had this great idea for this book that just came out, and as Bob knows, it was about this thick. And he was very gracious to say something to the effect, well, that's a good idea, Josh, but maybe they're probably not going to read the whole thing at once or something along those lines. So I thought, well, how about an article when it isn't essential that you read it in advance, but it was short enough that you hopefully could get with it. So I'm going to go with the assumption that you've at least skimmed what isn't a very long but a very powerful piece that hopefully resonated for you. And we're going to dive in deeper on not the first 3, since we did that the last time. So if you missed that, you'll just have to go back and rethink about those. But the second group of 4 principles we're going to engage today in a unique way. But as a way to start, and as a kind of a different tool for getting to know each other, I'm going to ask you in a moment. We're going to stand up here. You and I will slide our chairs out of the way, and we're going to stand in 2 lines facing each other. And we're going to do an exercise. Some of you have done adaptations of this in your own classes, speed dating essentially. But I have 2 questions, so we're going to each share the following 2 things. The first statement is, teaching is hard. And I want you to share something with your person in front of you about what way is it that teaching is hard. Maybe it's an example, maybe it's a guiding principle you've come to conclude over the years of experience you've had, but somehow you're going to share in something 30 seconds or less why teaching is hard, or that respond to that statement, teaching is hard. The second one is going to be, I love teaching. How you would respond to that. Give us an example, maybe some sort of principle, again, that you've gained over the years about, I love teaching, okay? So teaching is hard, I love teaching. What we'll do is we'll get in these 2 rows and say, well, that's not gonna work. So I guess what you have to do is the person will have to come back around the table again and get back on the line. So we're gonna meet a new person each time. So hi, Debbie, this is Josh, and do a quick introduction if you don't already know each other. Remind you what department you're in. And then teaching is hard, and here's why. And then another person will go, teaching is hard, here's why from my perspective. And then I love teaching, and then I love teaching. Okay, and I'll sort of blow a whistle. I don't have a whistle with me, but then I'll ask us to shift a line. I'm going to participate too, so I'll kind of just generally have this in my mind. So we'll hear some different perspectives. We may not get through everyone. I may stop us sort of halfway through. We'll see, but at least you get some different perspectives. But I want you to think about the themes that you heard. from different perspectives and ask us to sort of report out what are some things you heard, and I'll put some notes on the board. Okay, is that basically clear? Everybody know what we're essentially going to be doing? Okay, so let's slide our chairs out of the way, and we're going to line up in the front of this room. So maybe we'll have some folks, we'll kind of sort of have our back to the wall. And the person, what will happen, we're going to go this way, so this person, let's just get together. And then find a partner, let's start that way. Find a partner. Face the person. We'll all be paired up face to face with somebody. Okay. Once you slide against the wall, one against the wall. Okay. Now, this should be enough.
Hi, how are you?
Okay. If we need to get one more against the wall, that would be fine. All right. What height do we get? Does everybody have a partner? Okay. Hold on a second. Time out. I know faculty love to talk. All right. So this group, let's have you. We're a little boxed here. Why don't you move around? So when you're done, you're going to walk around and start that end. Okay. So your group will actually do the moving. We'll just stand here. Okay. I know you have more exercise than you're doing. Sorry. All right. A little more space.
No, you need to little more space.
I think we're okay. All right. So all right. Ready? So teaching is hard. You take a turn. Hi, Debbie. Okay, one more, right? No, we're done. Okay, awesome. Okay, thank you. Okay. Now you can rest your ears for a little bit.
It's all over there.
Now I'm all depressed because I listened to so many things that made me.
Okay. Thank you for indulging me in that little physical activity, I guess. Boy, it feels so quiet in here now if we've gone through all that.
We're exhausted.
I
We're all
know.
tucked out.
Okay, so what kinds of themes did you hear? Did you hear something that particularly jumped out? I was like, wow, that this seems to be. Well, let's start with the hard part. So, what were some of the things you seemed to hear repeated, perhaps, in the hard part of it?
Well, this
Miriam?
Chickering and Gamson was written in the last millennium.
Mm-hmm. It was.
Right. So it talks about 20th century. So I think 21st century, it's harder because of social media, the cell phone. And that, for me, is one of my challenges, is get them to put down their cell phone even for 20 minutes, but let alone a whole class. That's a challenge. It's hard.
I heard at Amherst that when you go into the dining facility, you must put your cell phone into a basket. You're not allowed to bring it into the dining hall. To force students to actually talk to each other. I was like, wow, how'd they get away with that? Yeah. So, good point.
If I might.
Yeah.
There is a program, I just learned about it, that you can give them extra credit, that you measures how they're not active with their phones in class.
Oh, yeah, there's an app.
And they get the credit, so they have to sign to the program, and then you get the report, and you can give extra credit for not being active on the phones,
Come Jay's writing that down right now. You
I'll give
better.
you the name.
See, you learn this stuff. Okay. All right. Thoughts? Yes.
Well, a couple of people said what was difficult was how different students' needs are within the classroom. Walking into a class with lots and lots of different needs and not knowing how to fulfill them all, which I thought was interesting and nice. Yeah.
It's about working with people at some level.
Right.
You take it different ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Other thoughts? What else did you hear that was hard about teaching? Jess. Nicole.
Time.
Mm.
That's my problem, personally, professionally, anyway.
Mhm.
Time. Just never feel like you have enough time because
Mhm.
you're doing so many other things and there's so many other expectations and draws on your time.
Mm-hmm.
Teaching is something that if you give it 10 hours a day, you can absorb it easily.
Mhm.
So it needs a lot of time, especially in fields like mine where you have to stay current.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just teach the same things year into
Mhm.
year. It changes very rapidly, so
Right.
it's challenging to find the time to devote to, or as much time as you really feel like you would like to devote to it or you need to devote to it.
Right. That's a good one. How about one more hard one that you recall hearing?
This isn't a hard one, but this was pretty prevalent with
Mhm.
everybody, with most of the people I talked to. We seem to be putting in more time than the students are. It's like, almost like we have a culture of students that are coming in which
Mhm.
are coming in with different extrinsic motivations than we came in with. So they're not taking in the information we're trying to give them. Sometimes we're working a lot more. In fact, a lot of times we're working a lot harder than they are.
They might not agree, but you know, but it is what it is.
So it's
yeah.
frustrating.
Sure. Okay.
You know, I've had them actually tell me, no, I can't read the book and I have extra credits.
Wow. Okay, on the flip side, you love teaching. What were some of the things that you heard that were patterns in there? The love of teaching.
Personal gratification.
Okay. How so? That was manifested in different ways for different people. What?
I think that when you see the change happening in students,
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily reflected in a grade, but like in their oral and verbal communication in the
Mhm.
class,
Mhm.
you know you've made a difference.
Yeah, that really feels good. Some other thoughts? The love of teaching.
And connect, just see students like get excited and have their curiosity piqued by something,
Mhm.
and even if I feel like over the course of a semester, I don't necessarily have like a very strong vision of being able to see that market change or a huge change in skills, but to see students get excited and have the curiosity and say, okay, here's a path I might follow, and I find that very gratifying. That, like the things that I'm excited about, I can share with them.
Right. I heard a few of you talk about things that happen after class is over.
Yeah.
You know, somebody said or did something that would maybe at least feel a little bit out of the ordinary. They came to see you and say, I want you to know how much that meant to me that you did this. Or God forbid it comes 20 years or 15 years or 10 years later that someone makes that kind of a comment. I mean, like, wow. You're
35
that-
years. I
Okay.
have students who teach as adjuncts here,
Mhm.
who were my students 35 years ago, and then they went to our graduate program,
Mhm.
and both of them are biology teachers in Paterson,
Mm.
and they married each other.
Wow.
So I saw.
So
I
being a
saw that-
matchmaker, I guess. I don't know.
It was a teen romance at William Paterson.
There must have been some real active
So-
learning in your classroom.
Yes, it was that reproduction section.
Well.
And they have 3 children, the children are all grown up. It's something, when you said, God forbid, 15, it's, you should experience that years
Mm.
later, that they come back to you. And now I'm doing a research project with one of these individuals, Louis Syed,
Mm.
with his students in the Paterson schools. We're doing a research project, next generation.
Do you have a folder in your computer where when you get an email or a letter or something, and just sort of save that stuff? You know, when I do as well, I've got some of those pieces, and boy, it just means a lot when you get them. Sometimes you just need to go back and just sort of read some of those things to remind you that you do make a difference. So, anybody else have another one they want to just to toss out that you heard? Love of teaching.
It's also learning. He said
Yeah,
that, and
that came up.
Yeah, just was not on the surface, but when I heard it, it's so true.
And not just about the learning for the students, but also learning for us.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
that
us,
we
yeah.
learn through that as well. Definitely, okay. All right, well, thank you for helping me to indulge in that. My reason for doing that was to kind of get you a little more deeper under the hood. I hope as you heard some of the things, you saw some parallels, perhaps, at some level, with the Chickering and Gampson folks. How many of you have actually familiar with Chickering and Gampson's work in this area? You've read, okay. Arthur Chickering, particularly, he's probably the more famous one of the two. If you go into the field of student affairs, so all the people here in student development who run our residence halls or do work in our student activities offices or the student union, one of the sort of big persons in the field is Arthur Chickering, who developed one of the sort of early student development theories among traditional age students. How do they develop over the period of time of college? At least that's the traditional age group. Later researchers talked about the adult learner and how that model doesn't fit for the diverse learner, those kinds of things. But that sort of was his claim to fame. But they just did a huge study of the literature and just sort of summed it up in these 7 ways. And maybe it's like any sort of activity. It's not perhaps fully satisfying, but at least at some level you've got some anchoring elements. And these things, in my view anyways, have sort of transcended time. And they transcend medium as well. So these things are equally as important in a distance medium, for example, or a hybrid course medium. It's not just about the face-to-face environment that we're in. These principles are important. And I'm sure if we took some time to say, last time I did this, what was your think about your best faculty or best teacher you ever had in your life, whether in high school or in college or whatever. And some of the examples they used were things that were tied to this. Okay. All right, so I want us to engage a little deeper now on these 4 principles. So as you may recall, just to remind you, good practice gives prompt feedback. Good practice emphasizes time on task. Good practice communicates high expectations, and good practice respects diverse talents and ways of knowing. What I wanted to do for this portion of it, I want to break us up into 4 groups. I'm going to kind of move them around the room. So maybe we'll do sort of sections of the room. So the folks over here, the 4 of you will be a group. You can be a 5-person group there, and then you all can be, well, actually, it's only 3. Never mind. I take that back. Let's do 3, 4.
Do 4 here because I have to leave. So I
Okay.
wanna
All right. So
be a
this
group of
this
3
will be
and then
this will be right here. Here'll be
shortchange
a
guys.
you all be you'll be principal 4. Okay. You 3 will be principal 5. You 3 will be principal 6, and you 3 will be principal 7.
Right.
Got it?
So we're
Okay.
principal 4, which
All right.
is
So
different
I want you
from
all
five.
to take this. This is an inventory of this for the principals, and there are some. I think they're all. Yeah, they're all. There's 10 in each case. So this is going to begin as an individual exercise. I'd like you to find your page. So 4, 5, 6, 7. Flip to your page, and I want you to individually do this. Okay, so you're going to, I'm not going to collect this is just for you, but you're going to rate yourself, the degree to which you do this in the classroom, on average, on typical. I know it probably varies by the class, but just attempt to sort of think about it. Whether you do something very often, occasionally, rarely, or never. Okay, and be honest with yourself. Probably not, yes, that kind of stuff. So you're going to just do that for a moment. Hmm? No, just do just your section. I mean, I know you're just going along like lemmings, right? I said just fill out your inventory for your section. You can fill out the other ones yourself on your own time. Okay. And then when you're done filling out your principal questions, gather as a group, and then, well, I'll stop. You're still filling them out. You will not be eligible for the raffle. I've got a really good gift. So. So just your principal, 1 page. Okay. So circle up with your group so you can sort of be talking to one another. And you're going to do the following. I want you each to share one of your strongest ratings and sort of briefly explain, why did I pick this one as my strongest? And then share one of your lowest ratings. So make sure that you do all of that. Okay? And so engage with you. You can ask the person some questions if you wanted to sort of see kind of how that works for them and, kind of take it that way. But ultimately, I want you as a group to imagine that you believe your principal is the very best by a long shot of all 7 of these. Okay, so you're going to craft roughly a 1-minute argument for why yours is the best. and then you're going to be prepared to answer it or to defend it. So someone's going to need to be your thespian to kind of do this, and we'll go in groups afterwards. So hopefully in a group of faculty, nobody will be fearful of that.
One highest and one lowest.
We share one and we pick one we like that.
Maybe I'll share first.
So one of the highest here, each one for each of you, and one for the lowest, and why, and discuss it. And it's the principle you're defending, not necessarily the individual items underneath it, or what that makes them up. Okay, so why your principle is number one. All right. Are we ready to have the debate
What is
of the
this?
pedagogical century?
Your name.
That's going to be for a raffle for the coolest thing at the end of this. All right, and she won it last time, so she couldn't fill it out.
Oh, that's so
So
sad.
And I drew it.
you did, and you drew it, so we're not going to let you draw this time either. Okay, so is there a group that wants to go first? You are going to. So as they're presenting, I want you to think about your position and maybe some of the holes you might want to sort of poke in that argument. Okay, or maybe some of the, as you come to understand some of these other principles you think are important. In the spirit of learning, right? Do you want to go first?
To give plenty of holes perhaps, that good practice gives prompt feedback.
All right, so we're talking number 4 here.
Number 4 is crucially important because students do not know where they stand if they do not get prompt feedback, and further, they do not know how they need to improve. Through prompt and effective feedback practice, we can find out where students are, meet them where they are, and give them a path forward.
How does anyone disagree with that? That sounds good.
Can't argue with that.
All right?
I know.
Okay. They think that's the best of all 7 of those, based on what you heard. Quiz them a little bit. Well, really? You know, I don't know about that. Maybe whatever argument I might use against that.
Fake news.
Fake news. Wow.
The only way to refute something that's a fact.
Students
All right.
don't read.
So students are going to do fabulously if they just get prompt feedback. That's the thing.
Well,
You don't
how
agree
do
with
you
it,
know that
Debbie?
they're reading?
It's just gonna keep the anxiety level down, that's all.
Okay. All right. So, yes.
How do you know they're engaging with the feedback?
That's all it does.
We discussed that as a challenge and talked about different ways that we have addressed that through building in assignments where part of the assignment overall is engaging with that feedback.
Well, you can do electronic quizzes and they immediately see their score, so they know that they are doing well or not well. And so they can't avoid looking at that because it pops up right away. That's just one little part of it.
How do you know that when you give them that feedback, that they're actually going to apply that feedback in the next assignment when you keep seeing them doing the same thing over and over? I know that from personal experience.
You ever come back for them by any chance? You're going to get your chance to go after them.
It
So.
works on some students and on some it doesn't.
So it's only partially correct. It only partially works.
Well, my response was, you really need all 7 plus more.
Right, all right. Don't be weak.
But we happen
Okay.
to think that without 4, you are just gonna let them roam free without ever knowing what they're doing.
Kumje, and then over here. Yes.
Positive feedback can get them satisfied and stop right there and then, do the opposite.
Did you say positive? I think you said prompt.
No, what I'm saying is that feedback can do both ways. If you say that you should correct this, but let's say, so I do draft writing, if they get an A in the first draft, they don't fix and submit the same thing, this happens over and over.
Strategic B on the first draft.
Right, you have to.
Okay, so we said good practice emphasizes time on task.
Well, you're about to shift for a second. You about to go to your next group? Is that what?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, can you hold that thought just for a second? I'm struggling with this. I need your help on this one.
Can I
Sorry,
respond to the point of how do we get them to do things in the future with it? I think one thing that might be effective about having kind of a semester long or even discipline long or program long kind of theme of feedback is that you can design future assignments, future course outcomes based on what you're getting earlier in the system. So I often think, I mean, when I write exams, I'm often thinking about what happened on the first exam, and so it's, you can't, I haven't figured out how to do it on the individual level, but on a class level, I sometimes I'm trying to do that, say like, okay, this is something that was struggled with, how do I build that path from this exam to that exam, or this paper to that paper?
Conundrum. So,
How you grade all the time?
All the time. Oh my God. All the
I know.
time.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm having a dilemma with this right now. But let me ask you the question first. If you were to grade us as a faculty from an A to an F on the degree to which we all, or the majority of us, provide prompt feedback and timely feedback, what grade would you give?
You mean the whole university? Yeah.
We're like nailing it, so we're A's here at this university, or are we, we're more like C's. All right. Okay, you're an A, all right, so, all right. Well, let me rephrase my question. If, how many of you in the first 3 weeks of your class have a graded assignment of some kind? Okay. All right.
Although I will say, I work in the honors college, and we've been doing meetings with the incoming students, and by week 7, at least half of them have gotten no feedback.
This is the dilemma that I confront as your provost. One of my dilemmas.
And I was shocked. I really was, because I'm right, as faculty, we all give, we're trying to give immediate feedback, but yeah.
We know how important that is. You know, is there a way in which we can better equip our faculty to give good, appropriate, modest stake kind of assignments that give them some prompt feedback? We had a huge spike on counseling free challenges for our students right before midterm, which is probably sort of normal. But what we're discovering, a lot of those students, this is the first assessment they're getting halfway through the semester. So, okay, so that's just one of the things I did. Okay, let's go to this group.
Okay.
Make your case, number 5.
So our case was good practice emphasizes time on task, and we believe that time management is the most important for our students, because that's what is reflected in their work life. And if they don't have time management, then they might lose the job that we skill them for, or we enable facilitated learning for. So that's why we think it's most important.
Okay. Anybody else want to add any more to that defense of time on task?
I think we discussed different points, but I think we see this as a miniature, as a preparation for the future. If they not able to succeed here, they're not going to be able to succeed when they go out and look for jobs.
Okay.
We inculcate in the skills that they need at this point.
Okay. Yes.
I actually want to jump in on that group. and be
Okay.
part of it for a
All right.
moment. But I can't remember because I didn't see it, I'm not sure who said it. You said time management, which is actually different than time on task, but it's related. And what struck me about that is our students are very complicated, and most of them have at least one job, some of them 2. Now think of commute time on top of that, and think of family obligations and so on. And so that the time management piece, a lot of times they feel they have time to come to class, and that's it. That's all they can give us. And so, yeah, that's a real challenge. Anyway, so I'm just moved chairs.
You're bucking them
for a
up.
moment. Nobody's moved chairs.
Okay. Anybody want to question that? Bob, you looking for somebody with one question? You look like you want to say something.
Oh, I'll say something.
Okay, all right.
I don't know, is quantity the same as quality? Time on task, sometimes I can spend 4 hours on something and get less done than in 10 minutes if I'm really focused. So somehow time on task, I think, needs to be refined as a concept.
Right. So it's about demanding tasks that take into their social context into consideration, designing assignments such that they are able to do it, maybe some online, some in class, so they do it at their time. So it's about delivering. So it's deliverables in class that has to stick to a timeline no matter, so we work with them how, no matter what their schedule is. So those are some of the things that we discussed as a group, and, you know, whether we incentivize it or not, whether it be punitive or not, if they don't turn it on time, so those are some of the.
Does that take more time for you, for the teacher, if I'm understanding what you're saying, giving sort of rolling deadlines?
It takes some, sorry.
So one of the things I wanna say is that we all have built-in flexibility, informal. So what we do is we might say that we need the assignment by 4 p.m. today, but the actual cutoff time is actually midnight, because it doesn't matter. Some students always need a little extra time, or they have problems loading or something. So even though the students are not aware of that midnight, you know, in the attempt to get it in by 4 p.m., there is some flexibility there.
As much as I agree with you and the intention, students' relative perception of time that we have is very different. So you'll have one student who will get that task and put the time in, and another student puts in, hey, I put an hour into this course, and think they're doing the task with a management schedule, but in fact, they're not putting the time in that they need to. So their estimate of what time they need to put in is unrealistic. It's not what you intended, it's what they think is realistic. So they think they're doing what you said, but in fact they're not.
So
That's why they learning in class or providing them with the tools to assess the time that will be necessary for tests. Because if they fail, if they put a certain amount of time and they fail, they'll know that they will need more time. And that skill is really important in the real life when they have reports or when they have a job that has to be done that has to be turned in. There are no extensions and no, all that we give to accommodate doesn't exist in the real life.
Which is
So-
good if you give them enough assessments early on that they can do that, but if you're not, then you're waiting until they've already gotten a failure.
Oh, we just heard a synergy right there in our comment. Woo, how about that? Between that group there and that thing. Okay. Yes.
I'm trying not to poke a hole on this one, but do you collect assessment about how much time they spend? So this semester, for the first time, I added a one-page self-assessment sheet. I learned from Len. To my writing assignments, and I asked how much time did you spend on this assignment. The assignment was 3 full pages, but it was not an easy one. One assignment, they have to read a very theoretical piece and then summarize and critique, and the other one had to combine 2 theories to apply to a social problem of some sort. And I estimated that they will spend about anywhere between 4 to 5 hours. The vast majority of students actually said, I don't know if they commuted or not, but they made mark, but the outliers were like 9 hours, and there were students who said like I spent 1 hour. It was not consistent with the grading, but I thought it was a good exercise. I learned from this is why I'm sharing, to put self-assessment statement about time spent on.
We could talk hours on that subject and what they are or not getting in high schools and those kind of things about those tasks. But let's thank our group. Let's move on to number 5 or 6. So this is what is why is this the best?
So
High
our
expectations. Whoa.
thesis was that without expectations, nothing else matters, because there can be, without high expectations, nothing else matters because there can be no learning. So without push, there is no growth. If everyone feels good enough because the expectations are such, feedback falls on deaf ears. If everyone feels good enough, it's hard to distinguish talent. We also had some caveats for those who will have some responses to our thesis. We believe that high standards can be not only in discipline-specific knowledge for a population such as our students, but they can be on skills and professional development, kind of along the lines of what your practice was. And we also thought that the delivery or how they are communicated is important as well, so balancing high expectations with support.
Sounds so great, so easy. Team, what do you think?
What do you do with the students who can't meet your expectations?
Oh.
You adjust.
Will you lower your expectations?
Well, high expectations, my idea of high expectations, if they're unrealistically high and it's not where the student is at, what's the point? You've lost them. There is no point. You know, so to stand up and say, oh, I must have my high academic standards, when it's impossible for the students to meet it, I failed. That's not the student's fault, that's me for not recognizing where they're at. So if you set it at the bar to such an extent where it's just not manageable for them, for whatever reason, then that's your fault. And I think we need to own it and change that bar. The expectation should be just beyond where they're at. So one of the challenges is to figure out, well, where are they? And then you set that bar and you can adjust as you're going. So is there some absolute on this? Absolutely not.
I mean, I agree with you that you have to try to increase your expectations and push them as hard as they can and see how far you can get them. But I think we have to be really careful that we don't lower those expectations, because if students don't know what's expected of them in the future and we don't push them that hard that we try to get them to those expectations,
You
we're
always
crippling
push.
them for the future.
You always push. You're always setting it beyond where they're at.
So is there a different high for each student?
Perhaps, but, so Megan here teaches the graduate students, so her idea of high expectations is different from someone in the honors. And I don't teach in the honors, so my idea of high expectations, well, I need to adjust it to where the students are at. So
Is there
I
a
think you
danger?
have to.
Is there a danger in lowering our expectations
Very
for
good.
certain populations?
Absolutely.
I don't think you should ever lower.
I'm just throwing little grenades out there.
This is a conundrum.
Expectations,
Yeah, it's
but I
hard,
think
I
you
don't
should
know.
have expectations that are appropriate for who you've got.
Yes, we got two hands very eager over here.
Go ahead,
Marie,
Marie.
Marie.
Marie, you go.
Did I just lose you? I'm sorry.
Well, I worry very much about students becoming discouraged. So what I tell them is every semester I say, you know, there was Mozart and Beethoven. Mozart got it right like that. Beethoven had to do it over and over again. His work was just as good. And so some of you may get things really quickly. Just because the rest of you can't do it so quickly doesn't mean you won't come up to the same standard. And when I've had students redo things, like there was one question on free will, one student couldn't get the point. Redid that part of the test 3 times and went from an F to an A. So it will work, but I think the Beethoven approach is also as important as the Mozart approach.
Right. Maybe more important in some ways. The skill building.
And I think that there's room for different expectations for different groups of students in different courses. And the reason we have A, B, C, D, and F is because some students will make the highest of our expectations, and others will fall out at different levels in terms of achieving and reaching the high expectations. So we have some room to allow for variability in how close they come to the highest expectations.
Let me share a few principal thoughts on this, because this is an area of study that I've done a fair amount. Raise your hand if you're generally familiar with the growth mindset work of Carol Dweck. Okay, it's okay if you're not. You should take a peek. What you were channeling was basically Carol Dweck, the idea of having high expectations for a person, but the belief that they can achieve it through hard work. And we have an education system that has largely relied on the use of, shall we say, cookies to encourage students to external motivators to move things forward, which has made this more complicated. But the idea that we would challenge students and encourage them, the belief that they can achieve this. So if their first test they do poorly, that you're particularly careful the kind of feedback you give them, to help them realize, you know, students struggle with this topic. I struggle with this topic at first, but you can learn this through hard work, and so the nature of how you give that feedback can be a huge difference. We could talk for hours on that subject, so I want to make sure we get to our last group, and then I can close up here. So
I actually have a
Yes.
student doing a rewrite of an exam now, so I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, no problem. I know I've gone over, I really apologize, but team, argue for yours.
Well, number 7 is number 1 because particularly at William Paterson, we have a very diverse
If we
student
pull your
body.
name, I will get you your book. Okay, all right, yes.
Particularly at William Paterson, we have a very diverse student body, and so the text, resources, pedagogies of the past are not always appropriate for them, so we need a variety of approaches in our teaching to match the variety of our students.
Just very briefly, we feel like if we can teach across disciplines, that they can take information that they learn in one course and apply it to other courses, that's sort of reflected in this in number 7.
And we actually wanted to think long-term on this, that we're not only preparing them to prepare and get through the courses here at William Paterson, but we want them to be successful in their careers. So there's 2 basic things. First of all, incoming information has to be in forms that this new group of students, this culture is comfortable with. So we have to do videos, we have to do computers, we have to do books, we have to do a variety to get the information in. The other thing is by getting the information from these diverse groups, we're actually getting them diverse information, which basically will help with what the new, it's called AQ. There's an IQ, there's an EQ, the new one is AQ. Adaptability quotient is what now all the employers want students to have. The adaptability quotient is the ability for a student to be in an unknown situation, analyze and figure out what they need to do. So now when you go for a job, they're not just saying, okay, what have you done in the past? They're saying, you're in the situation, this has happened and this happens, what are you gonna do? And the ability to give them different informations and find different sources of information help them to increase their adaptability quotient in their careers.
Wow, how great does that sound? Do they want to kick issue with their things?
QED, right?
What do you argue with me?
Mic drop.
I will take a little issue with your group over here. You didn't actually say this, but there's always been this long-standing belief that, well, students have different ways of learning. So there's the auditory learner, there's the visual learner, there's the kinesthetic learner. One has to do by hands. Actually, much of the research is inconclusive on that particular topic to say that you learn a particular way that's by definition going to be different than yours. But you're getting at this adaptability quotient, the idea that we can learn through all those ways. We just have to provide them the skills and the exercise to be able to do those kinds of things.
And you have to expand your definition of what is the different ways of learning. The
Right.
different ways of learning aren't just the old way that
Right.
you mentioned. They're the computer, and they're reading, and there's this, so there's
It's
different.
also offering them different kinds of assignments too,
Mhm.
where they have some sense of autonomy and choice as well, and trying out new skills.
Can I also add one thing, thinking about diverse ways of knowing, diverse talents and ways of learning is, universities are kind of inherently approaching bourgeois structures, and they are white, predominantly historically, they are male predominantly historically, they are straight, they are able-bodied, they are middle class and above, and our student populations are bringing the virtues of the working class, the virtues of living in marginalized positions that are not recognized by these dominant orders. And I think it's sometimes, I come from a very middle class background, and like reminding myself that to really be clear and able to identify those, those different virtues that were not the kinds of things that set me along my path, but are really valuable in and of themselves, and that my students bring to the classroom is, I can't argue with yours being the most important.
I said the nicest things.
All right, powerful step. What you just said reminded me of the work of Donna Beagle. He talks about written versus oral communication. Higher education is about written stuff. here's my 25-page syllabus. Just read this thing and you will know all you need to know to be successful in our classes. We've all, at least intuitively, hoped that that would do the trick, and we get all frustrated that it doesn't do the trick, right? Okay. Okay, all right. Well, some people do read it. You know, we probably all read it in college. Yes.
I just wanna say, one of the books that you sent out on your list, there
Yeah.
were 4 books.
Yeah.
There's one of them that talks about, class,
Mhm.
working class versus, middle class people.
Yes, yes.
How the, childhood experiences are different,
Mhm.
so that when they come to college, you know, and it kind of looks at that, but
Yeah.
it's available in the library.
Oh, good.
And it's downloadable, and
Nice.
it's easy reading.
Fabulous.
So I started
Thanks for
reading
noticing.
it.
Thanks for noticing. The oral part is about the verbal. It's about the talking. It's about the engagement. That's where trust and confidence and things get built. But that stuff takes time and it's hard. You know, that's the thing that gets me frustrated, that the state of New Jersey doesn't just throw us some more money so we can really engage on those sorts of things to help students that perhaps are more likely to be the oral communication types versus just giving them the written stuff. All right, I got my soapbox, but there's just some level of that stuff in the mix. Okay, I've held your, yes.
In my master's level class, I noticed that people in the discussion in class, they're very good at oral communication.
Mhm.
But when they have to go write their papers, it's
Mhm.
like 2 different people altogether.
Yes.
Well, to some level, that's probably been universal at times for different folks, but your point's an excellent one. Okay. All right, we won't solve all the challenges, but I hope that this got you excited that this craft of teaching is both a challenge and a joy in its own way. Thank you for adding something to my life in a learning way about you and about the things that you do, and hopefully you've gained from each other
Yeah.
and have a few tools to do that.